magwambo kechikayoa Kaila kenyo chionge baba kechikayoa Ibo miya wero wunya lengo tinga awero serikal ng'anirie
Kisumu Forward power! Forward fire! Asanteni sana. Now, let me begin first by apologizing. There was a little bit of a misunderstanding because I knew this was your forum, and so I thought even in my absence, we would start with other engagements so that when I come, then I just close the event. But unfortunately, I'm told you are waiting for me to arrive, then we start. But again, I had some engagement in the morning, but I tried to rush them so that I could be here in good time. Poleni sana kwa kuweka kwa hiyo muda mrefu. But I want to be very brief and fast so that I can release you to go back to other engagements. I want to start by doing the following, if you allow me. Number one, I'll give my official speech because this was a very important day. I was requested to come and officiate on this youth empowerment through the legacy of Raila Odinga. And therefore, I would not do service and justice to this engagement if I don't take time to give a formal address touching on the theme of the day. Once I am done, you will allow me to make off-the-cuff remarks, and I will do that in Doluo, if that is agreeable. Sawa sawa? Then I will close it there. So good afternoon to all of you distinguished delegates who are here, who are present here today. I am aware that I am addressing a mixed delegation that is composed of youth drawn from various areas which include the following. Boda Boda team. Where is the Boda Boda team? Thank you very much. Where are the comrades? Thank you very much. We also have representation from the blue economy. How many of us are coming from the blue economy? That is the fishermen, fisherwomen, and the others who are participating in that space. We also have amidst us professionals. If you know you classify yourself as a professional, let me see by a show of hand. Thank you. And then we also have aspirants. Those of us who are interested in running for various seats in the next general election. May I see you rising up so that we can see how many are interested in running for political seats. And finally, I am also here with the business community. Wangapi wametoka business community, wale wafanyabiashara wako hapa. Thank you very much. So allow me in my address to refer to you as wananchi. As my intention is that by the end of my address, we should all strongly feel obliged to build a better Kenya, which has space for each one of us. Our struggle for a space we identified as our own can be traced back to the struggle for independence, so that we could have the Jamhuri we call, the country we call Jamhuri, Kenya. But this was really but a first step in a long journey. It was easier to fight for independence. But after attaining independence, then the real work stands. And what is the real work? The real work is to build the nation. Building the nation is different from fighting for independence. It is a difficult work. We must work towards building the nation we call Kenya. And as a nation is one where we all feel that we belong. It is a place we are willing to sacrifice for because it is dear to us. It's a place we don't just exploit but plow back into with the hope that it will continue to thrive even into the future. The scarcity in such leadership is why many held and still hold Raila so dear to them. What am I saying? I am saying that leadership which will treat Kenya as a nation, leadership that will work towards building the nation called Kenya, is very rare. I am sure you have seen various leaders. Many of us don't even think that we should behave like a nation. That is why many of us, even today, still feel very aggrieved, even with the Almighty, for taking away Raila from us. Because this is someone who believed in this nation. Raila believed in building a nation. That is why he pushed very hard for a constitution. The one we now have and are all committed to. The process of writing this constitution that we call 2010 Constitution and the resultant document itself helped bring us together, helped us to begin to find a commonality, and indeed that is why to date you find people pushing back hard when any attempt is made to make amendments to the Constitution. Even though most of us know very well that there are things that need to be amended in the Constitution, but because of the journey we walked, and because we hold this Constitution so dear to us, and because we sacrifice a lot for the 2010 Constitution, any mention to Kenyans that you want to amend this Constitution is always resisted. The spirit of this Constitution, wananchi wenzangu, is not just the text, but the fact that everyone, including the many who had previously felt that they were left out, now felt that they were specifically included. This is really the spirit in that law. And if we can all begin to see that, then we may not be so fancied or frazzled with the mere idea of an amendment. As long as such an amendment adheres to the spirit and intention. However, this spirit can only be ignited by systematic leadership that the masses trust and that is clear on an agenda that resonates with the masses. And that, comrades, and all present here today, was the spirit of Raila Amolo Odinga. I want to repeat that. I want to repeat that the spirit by systematic leadership that the masses trust, leadership that you and I trust. And that is clear. You must be trusted, but you must also be clear on an agenda that resonates with the masses. And I'm speaking now even to those of us who are aspirants today. You must have a very clear agenda for your people. If you don't have an agenda, you will not get the buy-in and the trust of your voters. I want to plead with you. The reason why we trusted Raila to the extent that any time he took a decision, even we were not sure of, we followed him religiously, like a command, is because we knew that always Raila had an agenda and an idea for us. And many, many leaders are not in that category. We trusted that he meant well for most, if not all of us. That where he was, we would find space as a people. That our concerns and issues would not be swept under the table when Raila was watching. That is the kind of trust that we had in him, and that is the kind of trust that we are still looking for a leader that we can trust that much. I am sure it will take us a while to identify a leader that people can follow, that people can trust, that people can believe in, that can take us somewhere in the future. That is why, and I want to repeat this for the aspirants here, I would tell you, and also remember that I speak here as a 3 times elected representative of the people. I was elected 3 times, voted for 6 times, because every time I was elected, I was voted for twice. I was voted for in the party ODM and then in the general election. 3 times. I never got direct ticket. And I got that because I believed that there was an agenda that I had for my people. That if you want the support of the masses, this one is to the aspirants. If you want the support of the masses, let them see the dream that you have for them. And then show them that you are keen to work towards realizing that dream. You must show your people that you have a dream. However small that dream is, please demonstrate to your people that you have a dream and demonstrate to them that you are committed towards realizing that dream. Even if it is just a dream of making sure that every household has water to drink, clean water to drink, that is a dream. If your dream is to make sure that all children go to school, that is your dream. Make sure that people identify you with your dream and you are committed towards realizing that dream. If they trust your leadership, they will choose to follow you. Reverting to our focus in our talk today, Raila, other than fighting for democratic space, was also a real believer in economic empowerment and development that promoted livelihoods for all. I dare say that it is for this reason that he was able to sell ODM so strongly in northern Kenya. He could sell ODM so strongly in coastal Kenya, the Maa community, and indeed, even the Turkanas, because those people understood what marginalization is and what economic progress would mean to them. And even get by in some parts of central Kenya where the real descendants of Mau Mau veterans continue to struggle for inclusion in independent Kenya. This is not just mere speak. And I know many have followed Raila's political journey. But I want to just share with you a bit Raila's political journey. We know that in February, if you are in this world, I know many of you are not. But you must have read in your books that in the year 1992, in the month of February to the month of August, Raila was in a political party called Forum for Restoration of Democracy, FORD. But between 1992 and 1996, Raila moved to Ford, Kenya. He was in Ford, Kenya. However, when he first moved to form his own party, because the two political parties were led by someone else. First was led by his father, then later Wamalwa Kijana led Ford Kenya towards the end, before Raila exited. But the first political party that Raila led as a party leader or as a chairman was in 1996, and that party survived from 1996 to 2001, and that was called National Development Party, NDP. The word development. I want you to underline the word development. That Raila's first political party had development agenda as a strong pillar for taking Kenya to the next level. His zeal and love for a united nation and people, for room and space for all people to engage and thrive, was made evident in his participation in these political parties. So other than being an inspirational leader, Rao was a strategist. That is where many of us lose it. That's where many upcoming, young, ambitious, vibrant politicians lose it. Raila was not just a Joey. Raila was a strategist. Baba was a strategist. As a strategic move, he was between March and October 2002 in KANU. He joined KANU. He dissolved the NDP. He went there with a very clear mission. And as a result of this move to KANU, he became known as Tinga. Because the Tinga he moved with to KANU destroyed KANU. KANU, the one we knew, is a pale shadow of itself today because of Raila's strategic maneuvers. Tinga destroyed KANU beyond repair. But that is a story for another day. Of note is the fact that when he again formed his own party, it was again the Liberal Democratic Party. Between 2002 and 2005, Raila led a party called Liberal Democratic Party. Liberals are known worldwide to be advocates for social change. That is what liberals are known for. This party gave way to ODM in 2005. To that still dreadful date when he rested on 15th of October 2025. Now, ladies and gentlemen, from this chronology, it is clear that leadership at whichever level calls for commitment and a cause. You must have a cause and then committed to that cause. It also calls for strategy. A balance must be struck between civil or political rights. We know we have civil political rights. You must strike a balance between civil and political rights on one side, and on the other side is economic and social rights. You cannot work in isolation. Civil rights, political rights. Economic, social rights. This is why a balance was always struck under Raila Odinga and must continue to be struck under Dr. Oburu Odinga, who is now the party leader of this great party called ODM, between agitation on one hand and discussion on the other. We can agitate, we can push, we can insist, we can picket, we can complain, but we must discuss as well. Because that is what Raila taught us. So between focus on civil and social rights, we must also know that social rights can only be realized where there is order and there is structure. In a space of anarchy, there can never be any social rights. Wananchi wenzangu, for purposes of today, let us take as an example devolution. And I am happy that the deputy governor is here. This is a cause that Raila was identified with even when he still walked this earth. The intention in devolution was to apply it to expand space, reduce focus on major towns, and increase possibilities for more people across the nation. The guide draft thus provided for 5 levels of government. It provided for national, provincial or regional, district, locational, and finally, village government. The regional level was to be composed of 8 provincial governments and 70 district governments, including Nairobi, which was supposed to be a special district. However, with compromise during the constitutional drafting process, we have what we have today. The spirit remained though, and can be seen in the context of Articles 174 and 175, wherein the 9 objectives of devolution can be summarized into 5 broad purposes that devolution is meant to serve. I am moving towards a close. I hope you are not getting tired. Number 1, empowering communities. Number 2, enhancing equitable access to services. Number 3, devolve governance and building blocks. Number 4, accountability in governance. And finally, protection of minorities and marginalized communities. It is clear that involvement of more people in how they are governed was key, but a realistic form of governance that did not weigh down the public coffers was also envisaged. Even in 2025, Raila was still calling for us to relook at the devolution structure. One of the reasons to support this call is the cost vis-a-vis the ability to apportion funds to development and other social needs like health and education, so that we support the health needs of the youth and empower them through training in the true spirit of Railaism. The importance of development to Raila was solidified in each of his presidential bids. I invite you to look at the manifestos Raila presented at each bid he made for presidency. In particular, what it spoke to insofar as empowerment goes. I urge you, for example, look at the Economic Council of Azimio that he established as a key tool to address the cost of living. And I'm happy that I served in the Azimio Economic Council as a member of that Economic Council. The cry for easing the burden of the people drove Raila Odinga to insist on the slots that is sought under broad-based government. He insisted on specific slots when he was negotiating with President Ruto to be given to ODM in the broad-based government. The interest in the economy performing was real, and in fact, Raila Odinga, whose offices is at Capitol Hill, if you know that very well, who was always known to be the center of people either calling in or hiding from being seen calling in. That is the Capitol Hill. People either calling in on Raila or they are hiding from being seen calling in, depending on the politics of the day. He moved from his office to call in on me at the National Treasury. Just a simple me, a young man whom he nurtured, the first minister that Raila walked to his office. I don't know whether you can remember any, but I was the first minister that Raila walked to his office. Others would go to Raila's office. He walked to my office is when he walked to others. What was he trying to demonstrate? He was trying to demonstrate his faith and commitment to the economy of the country. He came to discuss with me the Kenyan economy and wanted the whole world to know that he was committed to realizing better economic growth. Ladies and gentlemen, pressure through engagement and partnership with the media will surely see realization of the development that we all seek so hungrily now that we are freer to enjoy the civil space. Agitation in the street that disrupts our economic life and poses a bump in the development journey must remain, but as a last resort. As a last resort. I hope I'm speaking to someone in the room. I am saying that agitation must remain, but as a last resort. This, in my opinion, will be the best way to honor the spirit of Raila, so that the honor will live beyond the current generation for decades to come. So, distinguished ladies and delegates, let us acknowledge that civic space has already been created, and in fact, we are currently way ahead of many nations, even in Africa. What we now need is access to economic spaces. After realizing the space, the political space, and enjoying our rights, now we can even abuse Mbadi at will, and nothing happens, leave alone even Mbadi. Even in social media, I can see people abusing even the president, something which was unheard of previously. But it is happening now because we have opened the democratic space. After that, now we need to move towards economic empowerment and economic engagement. This can only be attained or realized through structured talks and engagements, in spaces where we can speak to each other and be heard. That is why for now, we must say, Maandamano tawe, and call for mazungumzo. I want to thank you. That is the end of my official speech. Wananchi